Welcome back to the terrace garden. So I want to go over some of my cuttings here for my fig propagations, just to kind of discuss general health real quick, clear up some confusion from online, and just kind of go over what makes a good cutting. So first of all, when you're doing a fig propagation from a cutting, your nodes are going to be your points of interest for what will root or leaf out. So a healthy cutting generally has 3, maybe 4 nodes on it. This one has 4. 3 is good. I bought some recently that only have 2, which is going to be a bit more of a challenge. It basically means that if they're planted in the ground, one below, one above the soil will have to root and leaf out, preferably in that order. So 2-node cuttings are generally not as, they're not as much of a guarantee to be productive. With that said, they can still be planted horizontally rather than vertically. Then you have 2 chances of getting the cutting to root rather than just 1. So this cutting, this is Smith. This is a cutting that I bought just to have more copies of Smith. This one, even though the ends are rough, that's indicative of pruners that were too small to make a cut and ended up splitting. That should still be okay because it's still down from the node quite a bit. So still viable, still usable, just not totally ideal. As a comparison, here's a Sharpie for size and also a Tycon uncut, just to kind of give you some idea of scale. I'll also pull out a ruler here. This is an old 6-inch ruler. So healthy cutting, 6 to 8 inches generally, 3 nodes or more. 4 is a bonus. You want them to be fairly thick. The ends can sometimes start to dry, which is fine. The real test is if the cambium beneath it is green. This is your living tissue, this vascular layer. That's where your cellular activity is going to transpire, especially around your nodes. So 2 different types of nodes. This is not a great example of a cutting, but it'll show you this is a terminal node, meaning the end. So that's a bud. That's on the end of the branch versus a node in the middle with this space between being your internode. That's where you want to make your cuts, between your nodes, not on them, leaving, if you can, about 1 inch or so below and above so they don't dry out. Thinner cuttings, this is about as thin as I would try. That's pencil thick. Cuttings are kind of like candles. If they're thin, they're going to burn fast and bright and burn out fast. If they're bigger, they're going to take their time, they're going to last longer. You're more likely to get them to root and then leaf out. And if they don't root, you don't have a tree. So getting a nice thick cutting is ideal. Something more like this level of thickness compared to that. This is still possible. I've had LSU Tiger cuttings that were this thin that rooted. I've also had one about the same thickness that went all the way, died all the way back down until it finally rooted because there was just no energy there. And the very last node, I mean, it was like alive to that end, that rooted. Everything else died back. Not ideal. It worked, but generally you want something, ideally if you can, about the size of a Sharpie, definitely thicker than a pencil. So some other things to look out for. Anytime you see wear on a branch like this, that's usually from friction of branches blowing in the wind. Usually not too big of a problem. Cosmetically not pretty, but shouldn't be a big deal. This is an end of a tree that didn't really fully lignify, and it has some either burn here, just dehydration. That's not ideal. It might even still be green underneath. Yeah, it is, but that might be a little more susceptible to rot. Would not be my first choice. Again, you want something that has beneath the outer bark that green cambium layer. That's what you're looking for. From the end of the cutting, so we saw that one was crushed. Probably still fine. Let's see if I have any from the ones I bought, because these are a little older and they're all labeled. I'm not going to get them mixed up. Okay, here's a nice length of tiger on the end. So here the end is dry. The heartwood is sort of, or the sapwood rather, is sort of dry. You can see the pith in the middle still white. Not a huge deal if that changes color. The cambium is what needs to be alive. So if I were to clean this end up, and I'm going to leave it a little long because I'm not quite ready to start my cuttings. There you can see the end. You've still got green within the end of the cutting. Everything else is sort of anecdotal. That green cambium layer is what we need in order for it to root. And the thicker the cutting, the more energy, the healthier the bark, the less likely it is to rot when it's put into soil. You're going to want it to still get oxygen, so you don't want super damp soil. I've had that problem before. I usually use Pro Mix. Last year I tried a soil from a local nursery and it was almost like clay. It was so dense, everything rotted. My first batch of cuttings, I lost all 50. The second batch, I got about 80% success rate because I used a different soil. Same cuttings, same growing condition, maybe a month or two apart in terms of timing, but both were done on my windowsill in my dining room, and not that different of conditions, but the more dense, we'll say, soil just was not as productive. These cuttings are fairly fresh, so you can still see the green cambium there on the outer edge. But for older ones, like this one that's smashed, I'm reluctant to try cutting it because these are just too small. This would need more of like a bypass. Actually, not even a bypass. That's probably still going to crush it. You would just need a bigger pruner to prune this, but the cambium is still green, so that should be just fine. Let's see what else we have here to take a look at. Yeah, these are fine. This is fine. A little dry, but again, I've got green cambium in it. You can see some of the wrinkles. It means it's just a little bit dry, but yeah, that'll bounce back. That wouldn't be too bad. So yeah, I would say all of these are pretty healthy looking. This is a bit thin and short, 3 nodes. But that's the thing. If you have the cutting and it's thin, you can still try it. You might get lucky. You know, if you only have a few or a very limited amount of room, then you definitely want to try for something thicker. Like that type of thickness, anywhere in between there is good. That's fine. So, yeah, hopefully that helps people out. When it comes time to propagate, generally what I'll do is I'll make a fresh cut, usually at an angle, and then score the ends very lightly just to expose the cambium, and I'll usually just take a blade and just very lightly score it. Then that'll get put into Clonex, rooting hormone, and then even this would root. It just has to be made sure that the soil's not too damp, which is always the case, but like that looks very much alive and healthy. A little bit of brown there, and the sapwood is fine. The cambium is what needs to be green, and you don't even need to cut it. You can just try the scratch test, and that'll show you what's going on. Hopefully that helps. If you have any questions or suggestions, feel free to let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching.